So, friends, the Trump administration is doubling down on its intent to violate both the U.S. Constitution and a federal court order. Remember what the Supreme Court ordered, ruled, directed that the Trump administration do just a few days ago in the case involving a young man named Abrego Garcia, who the Trump administration admitted it wrongfully, indeed unconstitutionally, deported to El Salvador. Here's what the Supreme Court said. The order, entered by the federal trial court judge, Judge Shines, the order properly requires the government, the Trump administration, to facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador. The district court's order remains in effect. And yet, here's the brand new reporting. Here is the position Donald Trump and his administration are now taking. Headline: President of El Salvador says he won't return mistakenly deported man to U.S. El Salvador President Nayib Bukele told reporters during a meeting with President Donald Trump today that he would not return a man the Justice Department said it mistakenly deported to his country. Quote, "How can I return him to the United States? Like, if I smuggle him into the United States?" Bukele said, sitting beside Trump in the Oval Office when asked if he'd return Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Quote, "Of course I'm not going to do it. The question is preposterous. We're not very fond of releasing terrorists." Trump then turned to Bukele and said of the assembled reporters, quote, "They love to have a criminal released into our country. These are sick people." Trump also said he wants Bukele to take in as many criminals as possible. Garcia has never been charged criminally in the U.S. or El Salvador, according to court filings. Justice Department officials have acknowledged that Garcia should not have been sent to El Salvador because of an immigration judge's 2019 order barring him from being sent there, and the Supreme Court has called his removal illegal and directed the administration to facilitate his return while being respectful of the president's authority. And then, friends, believe it or not, matters got even worse in that Oval Office meeting. Here is a post from Professor Timothy Snyder. You may be familiar with Professor Snyder. He is a renowned expert on autocracy, on dictatorship, on tyranny. Here's what Professor Snyder posted. In his meeting with President Bukele today in the White House, President Donald Trump told his Salvadoran counterpart that, quote, "homegrowns are next," close quote, and that El Salvador would, quote, "need to build about 5 more places," close quote, "to hold American citizens." So, the President of the United States proposes on camera to deport Americans to foreign concentration camps. Autocracy, dictatorship, tyranny. So, friends, what now? What will the next 24 to 48 hours bring in the Garcia case? Well, Tuesday, Judge Shines is holding another hearing, and I suspect she will be discussing initiating contempt of court charges, and we'll be talking more about the nuts and bolts of contempt of court in the coming days. But ultimately, this case is headed back to the Supreme Court, which has already ordered that the Trump administration must facilitate the release of Garcia from that prison in El Salvador and treat his case the way any other case would be treated had he not been illegally deported to El Salvador. And I don't know what the Supreme Court will do, but I know there's one thing that the Supreme Court cannot do. They can't let this lie. They can't let this stand, because if they do, then they are giving Donald Trump permission to destroy the constitutional construct of our government. When one branch of our government, the executive branch as headed up by Donald Trump, refuses to acknowledge and abide by another branch of our government, the judicial branch and the Supreme Court, which has the constitutional authority to decide what is and what is not constitutional, what the executive branch can and cannot do. If the Supreme Court lets this violation of our constitutional construct lie, then constitutional governance is basically over in the United States. And if the Supreme Court lets this lie, they will be setting a precedent, de facto precedent, tacit though it may be. They won't announce it, but by their failure to stand strong, this is precisely the signal they will be sending. They will say the Trump administration can kidnap, can grab up off the street or from their place of employment or from their home, can snatch up anybody with no lawful basis to do it. No warrant, no court order. They can then take that person and deprive them of their constitutional guarantee of due process, which means they get notice of what the government is going to try to do to them and an opportunity to be heard in court and have a judge make the decision if it is lawful and constitutional or not. Gone will be those protections. So the Trump administration can grab anybody they want, send them to prisons in foreign lands, direct those foreign governments to imprison those people, and there's not a damn thing the courts or anybody else can do about it. That is what the Supreme Court will be enabling, will be sanctioning, and thereby will be encouraging if they let this lie. So they better not let this lie. Because justice matters.